It is Friday, but more importantly, Sunday. Just go to Rural King. You're I'm gonna guess you've never been to Rural King. You probably don't even know what that store is, do you?
Nope.
Yeah, I had a pretty good guess on that one. Rural King is basically the Walmart for farm people. People that live in the no, seriously, you can go buy. They have food and stuff, but they have little baby chicks, horse stuff, the farm stuff, all kinds. Anyway, you can get about anything there. But one of their deals is they're always popping popcorn, and you can have a bag of popcorn when you walk around their big old place. But they sell these big old bags for $2.99. Sunday, excuse me, you need to just go buy a big old bag of that Rural King popcorn, sit down, and I think are 10 of the 14 Big Ten teams in action on Sunday.
Yeah, I think there's at least 5 games.
That would be 10. So yeah. And I think there's 2 on Saturday. So, but Sunday is just going to be a festival because we have no clue as to who is going to finish where in the Big Ten standings. Illinois just jumped up to the top of the 2s, it looks like. Indiana staying kind of right where they are, with Maryland and Northwestern below them, which has the tiebreaker over Indiana. Indiana has a tiebreaker. I don't know, because that's going to go to the average of the games between those 3. And it doesn't matter until Sunday happens. Indiana finishes at 12-8. They need Maryland or Northwestern or Iowa to lose. I believe, correct? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 teams currently tied for 2nd through 5th. Or 7th. I don't even know. 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th. Yeah. 2nd through 7th is a 5-way tie or whatever. 6-way tie. With 1 game to play. That is the craziest stat that I think I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's and the biggest kind of wrench that was thrown into it was both Northwestern and Maryland losing earlier this week. That brought, I think, at least 3 more seed lines to almost everyone in kind of that middle area, and brought that back into play for everyone. Obviously, especially Indiana, who I'm not sure if they can still fall to the 9, but going into yesterday, they could fall anywhere from 2 to 9 if a lot of different scenarios happened. I think you're looking at the most likely spot, assuming right that they get a win, would be kind of locked into that 4 spot and get that double bye. But they still have, there's so many different scenarios where potentially could jump up to the 2, right? If all 3, Iowa, Maryland, and Northwestern lose, they could drop down to the 5. If 2 out of those teams win, obviously, if Indiana loses, then it's kind of, that's on them at that point. So all Indiana really needs to do is just focus on taking care of business on Sunday, and I guess kind of hoping for a good result in one of those other games. Something that, at the end of the day, probably should not have come down to the last couple games on Sunday. But that's where we're at after Tuesday's obviously disappointing performance.
Purdue escapes in overtime. Illinois, Michigan goes to double overtime. It's getting dicey now. People are playing for their lives, and it's showing. Let's see. Saturday in the Big Ten, there's only 1 game, and it will not impact the standings. Ohio State at Michigan State. I thought there were 2 games, but that will not impact. But Sunday, 6, the rest of the Big Ten is in action. There are 6 Big Ten games on Sunday, people. It starts at noon. You can start watching Big Ten basketball at noon and stop around 10 o'clock that night. So go get that big old bag of popcorn, because it starts out with number 21 Maryland on the road at Penn State, Alec. the road has been Maryland's kryptonite. They have barely won on the road. They've won virtually all of their games at home. Every loss, even recently, at Ohio State, a loss. Before that, at Nebraska, a loss. At Michigan State, a loss. I'm looking back at their losses. At Purdue, a loss.
Yeah,
at Iowa, at Rutgers, at Michigan. Yeah, they just lose to everybody on the road. This is a great opportunity for Indiana.
Yeah, 2-8 on the road on the season there for Maryland, and you're going at Penn State, right? A team that's still kind of fighting for some sort of bubble potential there to try to sneak in. They got a lot of help with some of the teams around the country losing last night on the bubble. Senior night, so we know pretty much anything goes when it's senior night, especially for I think that Penn State crew who, when you look at a guy like Jalen Pickett, a guy like Seth Lundy, guys who have been there for obviously 4 years, but guys who have meant a lot and done a lot to that program throughout their careers. Definitely a special night for a lot of the Penn State fans. They're going to be looking to obviously get that signature win that they desperately need at this point in the season. Obviously ending the regular season there on Sunday. So kind of a recipe for disaster if you look at it from Maryland's standpoint. But also, an opportunity for Maryland to really cement themselves, as a team that could potentially move past the first weekend here, or at least get a win in the NCAA tournament if they can go on the road, finish the season strong here, and then potentially make some noise in the Big Ten tournament. But a lot of people are obviously going to be kind of watching a lot of these games earlier in the day. At the end of the day, it really shouldn't matter. It doesn't matter. Indiana just needs to take care of business, and whatever happens after that happens. But I think a lot of people would be pretty disappointed even more if a lot of those other teams that Indiana quote unquote needs to lose to get that double bye or to even get up into a potential 2 seed in the Big Ten tournament fall in Indiana's lap. And then Indiana obviously lays an egg, which they've done at times at home. When you look at obviously Iowa, when you look back to Northwestern and some of the other really slow starts that they've had at home over the last month and a half. So they need to be ready to play because Michigan still has an opportunity to make the NCAA tournament with the win and a little bit of movement there in the Big Ten tournament. So they're going to be coming in fighting for their lives and obviously want to ruin a senior night for a large majority of those Indiana players.
There's a very good chance that both Northwestern and Maryland do not have double byes for this tournament. Maryland has to go to Penn State. That would be a ninth loss. And Northwestern has to go to Rutgers, which would be a ninth loss. That is going to kick them out of the double bye, in my opinion, because you've got Purdue, they're locked. If Indiana wins, they're locked. Who else would that leave? This is Iowa. I expect Iowa to win. They will be a lock. I don't know. Rutgers maybe because of tiebreakers. I don't know.
If both Maryland and Northwestern end up losing and Indiana and Iowa get those wins on Sunday, Northwestern, which was considered to be at one point, the only real threat to potentially get some sort of a share with Purdue, could drop all the way down to ninth in the Big Ten, which is absolutely crazy considering where they were just a week and a half ago, even coming into this week. But that just shows you, obviously, the Big Ten, with 1 to 10 realistically, or I guess take away Purdue, right? 2 to 10, 2 to 11, really kind of a coin flip when it comes to any of those matchups, especially if you have the better team going on the road, which a lot of big teams have not been able to win big time signature games on the road. And that's what obviously both Maryland and Northwestern are going to do, and hope to not end on a 2-game losing streak going into the Big Ten tournament, which I think would be extremely defeating and deflating for both of those programs, considering what they've done over the last couple of weeks to get into this position to get a double bye, to potentially have a 2-3 seed And now you look at what could be, which would be, definitely a crazy turnaround when you look at, again, where they were just 4 or 5 days ago.
Yeah, and Indiana getting that double bye would be critical importance. I mean, that saves you from playing for Indiana. I'd say at least one extra game. They would not have to play on Thursday. They could start playing on Friday. Moves you up. Depends on what 2 seed they're going to get, on which side of the bracket they land on, which it's in Purdue's or not in Purdue's. There's just so much to be determined yet, which in turn will determine what happens the following Sunday for Selection Sunday. As we look forward to that, I know a lot of IU fans are trying to figure the scenarios of where Indiana can land. I can tell you that their ceiling is no longer a 3. There is no way I can see that. I don't care if they win the Big Ten tournament. I don't think that they're going to jump up to a 3 seed now. I think that they may be close to the bottom of the 4s at the moment. But, I mean, it's hard to tell. But it depends so much on what happens in front of them, like I said. I just don't know that there's enough room for them to move up that far after, the bounces that they've had. I don't think that after the loss that we saw the other day at home, people are going to be too apt to make them a number 3 seed. Alec?
Yeah, I think, there's some crazy stuff which at this time of year could happen. A lot of things are going to happen if Indiana wants to get up there. I don't think, realistically that was ever too much in play when you looked at kind of what the 2 seeds were, because obviously some of those have shifted, but those are strictly going to be moving within the 2 to 3 line. So you're going to need a lot of help from those 3 seeds if Indiana's going to have any shot, and they would have to win the Big Ten tournament to have that potential. I think it's more likely, right, that you fall at the very last 4, or even if you don't win the Big Ten tournament, depending on what happens, right, you could fall into that 5 seed area. And that's just why the last week of the season, the regular season, is just so imperative and so crucial for a lot of these teams, because regardless of kind of what it does in, conference tournament seeding, a lot of these teams are really focused on what's going to happen and what potential seeding they could get in the NCAA tournament, and kind of where they're going to go, where they're going to travel, matchups, and everything like that. And you're going to kick yourself if you are that top 5 seed, right, in a really difficult region compared to that last 4 seed, and it comes down to the 3. If we're going back to Indiana specifically here, right, 7 out of their 10 losses this year have been by double digits. 6 out of those 7 double-digit losses have been by at least 14 points. Now, when you look at the other 3
Say
losses,
that again.
So 7 out of the 10 have been by 10 plus, so double digits, and then 6 out of those 7 double-digit losses have been by 14 or more points. The lone outlier there was Maryland, which was an 11-point game, and obviously that was right around 14 to 16 for the majority of that second half. But those other 3, right, the 2 Northwestern and then the first Iowa, been by a combined 5 points. So when you look at those 3 games specifically, right, they blew a 21-point lead to Iowa, and then they were down 17 and 21 to Northwestern both times in the first half. So the point differential that Indiana's seen in the losses has been astronomical when you look at from minute 1 to the final minute of the game. And they're going to go back and kick themselves if they aren't able to stay on that 4 line. They're going to look at obviously those 2 home games to Iowa specifically, the blowout earlier this week, but even more so that 21-point lead to Iowa in Iowa City, and then either one of those Northwestern games, especially the one at home where you laid an egg to really start January and go on that 3-game losing streak.